An American serial killer, rapist, kidnapper, and necrophile, Theodore Robert Cowell, or Ted Bundy, is known for ruthlessly assaulting and murdering young women during the 1970s. Shortly before his execution, he confessed to have committed 30 homicides throughout 7 states. Using his charismatic personality, he approached young, attractive women in public places to later overpower and assault them in a secluded location. On occasion, he revisited crime scenes for hours to groom and perform sexual acts with the decomposing bodies of his victims. Is it justified that savage, merciless people like this deserve the right to live? We as the negative side do not support this outrageous proposition. We believe that capital punishment should be reserved for these reasons at the very least because of morality, crime deterrence, and justice. First, we would like to emphasize the fact that the death penalty does not punish for the act of killing, but for murder. To kill, defined by dictionary.com, is to deprive life of any matter, or to cause death of. Murder, on the other hand, is the crime of unlawfully killing someone, especially with malice aforethought, defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Therefore, contrary to the possible beliefs of the affirmative side, this definition cannot be applied to the death penalty, being that it is not only lawful and non-malicious, but carried out by the government, not an individual. We are not murdering the murderer like an eye for an eye. We are executing the murderer for fair punishment of the crime committed. Contention 1. Abolishing capital punishment in the United States will leave the justice system with no moral method of punishment. Morality is defined as the principles of right and wrong by dictionary.com. We as humans are moral creatures and deserve praise for good deeds and punishment for bad ones. Punishment can be anything from a slap on the wrist to death, but it must fit the crime. This is where lex talionis, or an eye for an eye, comes in. The affirmative side might think that by supporting this belief we are prepared to rape rapists or burn down the houses of arsonists. However, we need not interpret it in the literal sense, because for obvious reasons, the raping of rapists is immoral. With no redeeming value, it would only cause someone to degrade themselves while not preventing the rapist from raping again. On the contrary, executing murderers prevents them from committing crime once more, protecting innocent victims. Therefore, the good outweighs the bad, and the execution of the murderer is morally justified. This reinforces our belief of utilitarianism, the idea that the rightness of actions depends solely on the relative good produced by individual actions defined by Moral Life, the textbook. Furthermore, the negative side think that simply by giving a felon a life sentence with no parole is wrong. If I were a murderer, I would love to stay in an air-conditioned, cable-clipped prison where a person gets free meals, recreation time, and visits with friends and family. And do you know what makes my sick mind infinitely more satisfied? That the grieving family of my victim is paying for it. According to an article on the morals of death penalty on Hoshua.com, such a punishment is I quote, a slap in the face of morality, end quote. Now, one might argue that not all prison facilities possess the conditions stated above, but eventually criminal rights activists will make sure that all prisons are nice places to go to. Contention 2. One of the benefits produced by capital punishment is that it serves as a crime deterrent. Although our opponents may argue that death penalty has no deterrent effect, their arguments are fallacious because of the simple fact that recently we have not abolished death penalty. They may declare that the states that have abolished the death penalty have less crime than those that do, but this is flawed because the states that abolish death penalty, such as Rhode Island and Vermont, have less population than the states that do, such as Texas and Georgia. Statistically, less population will result in less crime. Therefore, it is unknown how many people in the United States, as we speak, are deterred by the thought of their own death when having urges to commit crimes. What we do know, however, is that in a study conducted by Professor Isaac Ehrlich from 1967 to 1968, it was said that death penalty was in fact a deterrent. This is when there was a moratorium or a suspension of activity on capital punishment in the United States, during which murder rates increased by 100%. The study also reviewed 14 nations that abolished the death penalty and claimed that murder increased by 7% from 5 years before the abolition period to 5 years after the abolition. This shows that with the abolition of death penalty, there is a possibility that the murder rate will increase in the United States, and therefore deeming the plan impractical. Contention 3. The death penalty is not for revenge, but for justice. If the victims of the family wanted to seek retribution, they would go to the murderer and inflict the same damage done. No, the death penalty is solely to bring the criminal to justice. Just like other punishments such as fines, jail time, and prison, the death penalty is administered equal to the crime. If a murderer takes a person's right to live, they should not have that right. By executing the murderer, we are making sure the murderer does not commit the same crime again. Plus, the death penalty is already very humane and lenient for the criminal. So negative.
Sorry.